I can still smell the leather seats of my father's Mercedes the day he told me I wasn't worth the investment. I was 16 years old, sitting in the parking lot of North Shore Preparatory Academy, holding an acceptance letter to a summer program at Stanford. Full scholarship, all expenses paid. The kind of opportunity kids like me dreamed about. Kids whose parents owned 3 car dealerships and a vacation home in Aspen. Dad, did you read it? Stanford wants me for their... How much? Those were the first words out of his mouth. I blinked. What? How much is this going to cost me? He was scrolling through his phone, not even looking at the letter I'd been clutching since the mailman delivered it that morning. It's a full scholarship. It's free. They're paying for everything. Nothing's free, Jennifer. There's always a catch. Application fees, travel, spending money. He finally looked up, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Calculation. Like he was pricing out a used Toyota instead of looking at his daughter. How much do they expect us to shell out? Maybe $500 for the plane ticket. I can use my babysitting money. $500. He laughed, but it wasn't a warm sound. You know what $500 is to me? Nothing. Pocket change. You know what it represents? Another one of your expensive hobbies that goes nowhere. My mother sat in the passenger seat, silent, staring straight ahead like she always did when he got like this. It's Stanford, Dad. For engineering. It's not a hobby, engineering. He said it like it was a joke. You're going to study engineering. You. My daughter who cried over AP calculus homework last month. I got an A in that class. Because I paid for a tutor. $60 an hour, twice a week, for an entire semester. Do you know how much that cost? Do you have any idea how much money I've poured into your education, your activities, your college prep? And now you want to be an engineer? Something cold settled in my stomach. I thought you wanted me to go to a good college. I want you to be realistic. You're pretty, Jennifer. You're charming. You should be thinking about marketing, communications, something that plays to your strengths. Not wasting my money trying to compete with boys who've been taking apart computers since they were 6. That's not. Here's what's going to happen. He started the car. You're going to decline this little summer camp. You're going to focus on your actual strengths. And in 2 years, when you graduate, you're going to go to state, live at home, and get a business degree. Something practical. Something that doesn't require me to keep throwing good money after bad. Mom? I turned to her, desperate. She'd been a chemistry major once, before she married Dad. She understood. She didn't turn around. Your father knows what's best. I went to that summer program anyway. I used my babysitting money, my birthday money, money I'd been saving since I was 12. I borrowed $200 from my best friend Emma. I got on that plane with a backpack and dreams bigger than my father's entire car lot. When I came back 6 weeks later, my bedroom door was locked. Dad? I called out, standing in the hallway with my suitcase. Dad? I'm home. He appeared at the top of the stairs, and my mother stood behind him, wringing her hands. Your mother and I have made a decision, he said. His voice was calm, matter of fact, like he was explaining a return policy to a customer. We've invested 17 years into raising you. Good schools, nice clothes, a beautiful home, every opportunity. And you've repaid us with defiance and disrespect. I went to Stanford. I got a 4 inches the program. They want me to apply for early admission. You stole from us. I used my own money. Money we gave you. Money that was meant to teach you responsibility, not fund your rebellion. He descended 2 steps, and I had to fight the urge to back away. Here's what's going to happen. You have 2 choices. 1, you apologize, admit you were wrong, and agree to our plan for your future. State school, business degree, no more of this engineering nonsense. 2, you leave. The words didn't make sense at first. Leave? Pack your things. Walk out that door. See how far your big dreams get you without our money, our connections, our support. Richard. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. She's our daughter. She made her choice when she got on that plane. He looked at me with eyes that held no warmth, no recognition. I was a bad investment, and he was cutting his losses. What's it going to be, Jennifer? I thought about that bedroom. The one I'd had since I was 6, with the window seat where I used to read, with the walls covered in academic achievement awards and science fair ribbons. I thought about apologizing, about swallowing this huge, bright dream I'd been carrying in my chest for 6 weeks. I thought about the girl at Stanford who'd told me about the superconductor project she was building. The professor who'd said I had an intuitive grasp of systems thinking. The version of myself I'd discovered in those 6 weeks, the one who belonged in a lab with a soldering iron and a problem to solve. I'll pack my things. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal, but she didn't move. Didn't stop him as he nodded, satisfied, and walked back to his study. I had 2 suitcases and $400 to my name. I called Emma from a gas station payphone, sobbing so hard I could barely speak. Her mom picked me up 2 hours later. That was the last time I saw my bedroom. The last time I called that house home. Mrs. Chen, Emma's mom, was a tiny woman with steel gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and hands that were always covered in paint. She taught art at the community college and lived in a small house that smelled like turpentine and jasmine tea. She didn't ask many questions that first night. Just set me up in Emma's room with extra blankets and told me I could stay as long as I needed. In my country, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed while I tried to stop crying, we have a saying. The bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists. You are bamboo, Jennifer. You will bend, but you will not break. I didn't feel like bamboo. I felt like something shattered beyond repair. The next morning, she sat me down at her kitchen table with tea and toast. So, she said, what do we do now? I don't know. I can't afford Stanford. I can't afford anything. I was supposed to start applying to colleges this fall, but I don't even have a permanent address anymore. Can't afford, or won't ask your parents to afford. They're not my parents anymore. She was quiet for a moment, sipping her tea. Emma tells me you're very good at engineering. That you built something at Stanford this summer. A prototype for a low-cost water filtration system. It's nothing that got you noticed by Stanford professors. She smiled. My husband, before he died, he was engineer. Very smart man. Very stubborn man. He would have liked you. She stood up, went to a drawer, and pulled out a folder. I've been saving. For Emma's college. But Emma, she wants to stay local, go to art school here. She doesn't need as much as I saved. Mrs. Chen, I can't. You can. You will. Consider it investment. When you are rich engineer, you pay me back. With interest. Her eyes crinkled. Very high interest. I don't understand why you're helping me. Because Emma came home from school every day for 2 years talking about her friend Jennifer who was going to change the world. Because I know what it's like to have parents who don't see you. She pushed the folder across the table. And because someone helped me once, when I had nothing. This is how it works. Someone helps you, someday you help someone else. That folder contained $15,000 in savings bonds. It wasn't enough for Stanford, but it was enough for community college while I worked. Enough for a start. I got a job at Target, working nights and weekends. I enrolled in community college, taking every advanced math and science course they offered. I applied for every scholarship I could find, writing essays late into the night about water filtration systems and determination and the meaning of family. I slept on Emma's floor for 18 months, until I'd saved enough for a tiny studio apartment that Mrs. Chen helped me furnish with second-hand furniture from estate sales. My mother called once. I was 3 months into community college, acing my courses, exhausted but determined. Jennifer. Her voice sounded thin over the phone. How are you? I'm fine. Your father. He's been thinking. Maybe we were too harsh. Maybe if you came home, we could talk about. About what? About how he called my dreams expensive hobbies. About how he chose money over his daughter. He's your father. He loves you. No. My voice was steady, surprising even me. He loved who he wanted me to be. That's not the same thing. You're making a mistake. You'll see. The world is hard without support, without people who make me feel worthless. I'm doing fine without that, Mom. I'm doing better than fine. She called twice more that year. I didn't answer. Mrs. Chen was at every one of my community college award ceremonies. When I won a scholarship for women in STEM, she cried harder than I did. When I got accepted to UC Berkeley with a full ride, she threw a party in her backyard with homemade dumplings and champagne. Bamboo, she whispered, hugging me tight. I told you. Stronger than oak. Berkeley was hard. Harder than anything I'd ever done. The engineering program was brutal, and I was surrounded by kids who'd had every advantage: prep schools, private tutors, parents who actually believed in them. I was the girl who'd worked at Target to afford textbooks, who still had nightmares about being locked out of her childhood home. But I was also the girl who'd built a water filtration system that was now being tested in 3 developing countries. The girl whose freshman design project got mentioned in an engineering journal. The girl who refused to bend, who refused to break, who turned anger and hurt into fuel. Junior year, I met Professor Sarah Okonkwo. She was a legend in mechanical engineering, with 24 patents and a reputation for brilliance and brutally high standards. I took her advanced robotics course and nearly died trying to keep up. She called me into her office one afternoon after I'd pulled my 3rd consecutive all-nighter working on a servo motor design. "Miss Harrison," she said, looking at me over her reading glasses. "You're going to burn out." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're running on spite and coffee. And while that's an excellent short-term strategy, it's not sustainable." She leaned back in her chair. "Tell me something. Why engineering?" "Because I'm good at it." "That's not an answer. Lots of people are good at things they don't pursue." "Why this? Why are you willing to destroy yourself to be here?" I was so tired. Too tired to construct a proper answer. Too tired to hide behind the professional facade I'd built. Because someone told me I couldn't. Because someone looked at me and saw a waste of money. And I need to prove them wrong. "Revenge is expensive fuel," she said quietly. "It burns hot, but it burns out. What happens when you prove them wrong? What happens after revenge?" I didn't have an answer. "I'm going to tell you something that took me 20 years to learn," she said. "The people who underestimated you don't deserve space in your head. They don't deserve to be the reason you succeed. You deserve to succeed because you're brilliant, because you love this work, because you have something to contribute. Not because someone was too small-minded to see it." She pulled out a file. "I'm working on a project. Smart prosthetics, advanced robotics for amputees. I need a research assistant, someone with good instincts and better work ethic. It pays. Not much, but enough that you can quit the retail job and focus on your studies." "Why me?" "Because Emma Chen's mother emailed me 2 years ago and told me to watch out for you. Because I've been watching, and I see someone special. Someone who reminds me of myself 30 years ago." She smiled. "And because spite-driven all-nighters produce terrible engineering. I need you rested and focused." I worked with Professor Okonkwo for 2 years. She became more than a mentor. She became the person who taught me that success didn't have to be about proving someone wrong. It could be about proving yourself right. She invited me to her family dinners, where her husband would cook Nigerian food and their kids would argue about everything from politics to the best Marvel movie. She wrote recommendation letters for my graduate school applications that made me cry when she showed me the drafts. "You're not my student anymore," she said when I tried to thank her. "You're my colleague. Your family." And family shows up. I got into MIT's graduate program with full funding. Mrs. Chen and Emma drove up from California for my Berkeley graduation. Professor Okonkwo hooded me herself, whispering, "I'm so proud of you," as she adjusted my cap. My parents weren't there. I hadn't spoken to them in 6 years. MIT was everything I'd dreamed about and more. I worked on cutting-edge robotics, published papers, won awards. But the best part was the other students, brilliant people from all over the world who actually wanted to change things. Who saw engineering not as a career but as a calling. I met David there, a soft-spoken guy from Ohio who was designing affordable medical devices for rural hospitals. We bonded over late-night problem sets and a shared belief that technology should serve people, not profits. He was the first person I dated who actually listened when I talked about my work, who got excited about servo motors and control systems. "You know what I love about you," he said one night, as we sat in the lab at 2 in the morning, debugging code. "You give a shit. About people, about making things better. It's not about the prestige or the money for you. It's about the work." Is that weird? It's rare. Don't lose it. In my final year at MIT, my thesis project, an affordable robotic prosthetic hand with advanced sensory feedback, got attention. Real attention. Articles in engineering journals, interest from manufacturers, an invitation to present at the International Robotics Conference in Boston. And then I got the call from Professor Okonkwo. Jennifer. Her voice was shaking with excitement. Are you sitting down? Should I be? The MacArthur Foundation. The Genius Grant. You're on the shortlist. The MacArthur Fellowship. $800,000. No strings attached, given to people doing transformative work. I'd never even considered it as a possibility. That was for real geniuses, for people who'd been working in their fields for decades. There's no way, I said. There's every way. Your prosthetics work, your water filtration system that's now in 40 countries, your papers on accessible technology, Jennifer. You're exactly the kind of person they want to support. And the announcement is next month, at a ceremony at the Boston Public Library. If I get it. When you get it. I didn't believe her. Couldn't let myself believe her. But I prepared my presentation for the robotics conference like my life depended on it, because maybe it did. This was the moment everything had been building toward. 6 years of refusing to quit, of turning pain into purpose. The morning of the conference, I put on the one nice suit I owned, bought secondhand, tailored by Mrs. Chen, who'd flown out with Emma to see me present. Professor Okonkwo was in the front row. David was running the video equipment. My found family, the people who'd shown up when it mattered. I was backstage, going over my notes one last time, when I heard a familiar voice. Excuse me, we're looking for the conference hall? The robotics presentation. My blood went cold. I knew that voice. I'd heard it in my nightmares for 6 years. I walked to the edge of the curtain and looked out into the lobby. My father stood there in an expensive suit, my mother beside him in pearls and a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. They were asking a volunteer for directions, looking around at the conference center like they belonged there. They'd come. After 6 years of silence, they'd somehow found out about this presentation and decided to show up. My hands started shaking. Emma appeared at my elbow. Jenny? Oh my God. Is that? Yeah. What are you going to do? I'm going to give my presentation. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. They don't get to take this from me. Do you want me to tell security? No. Let them watch. Let them see exactly what their daughter accomplished without them. The presentation went perfectly. I talked about my prosthetic design, about the low-cost materials that made it accessible, about the field tests we'd done with amputees in 3 different countries. The audience asked smart questions, and I had good answers. I didn't look at my parents once. Didn't acknowledge them. They were just 2 more faces in a crowd of people who actually cared about the work. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Professor Okonkwo was on her feet, beaming. Mrs. Chen was crying. David gave me a thumbs up from the video station. I walked off stage, ready to decompress, to process the fact that I just nailed the most important presentation of my career while my parents watched. And then the conference director stopped me. Miss Harrison? Could you come with me for a moment? There's someone who wants to meet you. She led me to a private room where a woman in an elegant navy suit was waiting. Jennifer Harrison? The woman extended her hand. I'm Catherine Morrison from the MacArthur Foundation. I wanted to tell you in person, before the official announcement next week. Congratulations. You're a MacArthur Fellow. The world tilted. $800,000. The Genius Grant. Validation from one of the most prestigious foundations in the world. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Say yes. And say you'll let us feature you at the ceremony next Friday. We'd love for you to speak about your work. She smiled. You're exactly the kind of innovator we want to support. Someone who sees technology as a tool for equity, not just advancement. Your story is inspiring. My story? Professor Okonkwo told us some of your background. How you funded your own education, overcome significant obstacles. We want to celebrate that alongside your technical achievements. After she left, I just stood there, trying to process. 6 years. 6 years of working myself to exhaustion, of proving I could do this, of building a life from nothing. And I'd done it. Not despite my parents' rejection. Because of who I'd become after it. I walked back out into the conference hall. The crowds had dispersed, but my father was waiting near the door. He'd gotten older, grayer. His suit was still expensive, his posture still confident, but something in his eyes looked uncertain. Jennifer. He took a step forward. That was an incredible presentation. Your mother and we've been following your work. The papers you've published, the awards. How did you find me? Your name was on the conference website. We saw you were presenting, and we thought. He glanced at my mother, who stood slightly behind him, clutching her purse like a shield. We thought it was time. Time to reconnect, to be part of your success, part of my success. I tasted the words, bitter and familiar. You want to be part of my success now. We're your parents. We've always wanted what's best. You told me I wasn't worth the investment. Those were your words, Dad. Not worth the investment. I was angry. I was wrong. But we're family, Jennifer. That has to mean something. It does mean something. My voice was steady, clear. It means I learned exactly what kind of people you are. What kind of love comes with conditions and price tags. That's not fair. You locked me out. I was 17 years old, and you locked me out of my home because I wanted to pursue my dreams instead of yours. Do you have any idea what that did to me? My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. We thought you'd come back. We thought you'd realize we were right, that you needed us. I did realize something, I said. I realized I didn't need you. I needed people who believed in me. Who showed up when it was hard, not just when it was convenient. We're here now, my father said. We want to make things right. We want to support you. With what? Money? Approval? I don't need either anymore. I got a full ride to MIT. I'm about to be named a MacArthur Fellow. I built all of this without you. His face paled. A MacArthur Fellowship? Jennifer, that's incredible. We could celebrate together. We could. You could what? Take credit? Tell your friends about your brilliant daughter. Tell people you always knew I'd be successful. We made mistakes, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. We were wrong. But we're still your parents. Doesn't that mean you should forgive us? I thought about Mrs. Chen, who'd given me $15,000 and asked for nothing in return. About Professor Okonkwo, who'd mentored me for years and never once made me feel like I owed her anything. About Emma, who'd shared her bedroom and her mother and her life without hesitation. You're not my parents, I said quietly. You're the people who gave birth to me. There's a difference. Jennifer. The ceremony next Friday. The MacArthur announcement. I'll be giving a speech, and I'm going to thank the people who made it possible. Mrs. Chen, who took me in and helped fund my education. Professor Okonkwo, who believed in me and gave me opportunities. Emma, who shared everything she had. The people who showed up when I had nothing to offer them but potential and gratitude. And us? My father asked. What about us? I'll thank you too, I said. For teaching me exactly what I didn't want to become. For showing me that real family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about who shows up. Who stays. Who believes in you even when you have nothing to give them but hope. I started to walk away, then turned back. You can come to the ceremony if you want. I won't stop you. But you'll sit in the audience with everyone else. You'll watch me thank my real family. And then you'll leave, and we'll go back to being strangers. Because that's what you chose 6 years ago. And I'm choosing it now. My mother let out a sob. My father looked like I'd struck him. Jennifer, please. Goodbye, Dad. I walked away and didn't look back. The MacArthur ceremony was everything I dreamed about and nothing I could have imagined. The Boston Public Library was packed with journalists, foundation representatives, and the families of the other fellows. Mrs. Chen wore her best dress, the one she'd worn to Emma's high school graduation. Professor Okonkwo brought her whole family. David held my hand while we waited backstage. You okay? He whispered. Yeah. I'm actually okay. When they called my name, I walked onto that stage with my head high. I saw my parents in the back row, small and separate from everyone else. I saw Mrs. Chen in the third row, crying and smiling at the same time. I saw Professor Okonkwo on her feet, applauding like her hands hurt. I gave my speech. I talked about accessible technology and the responsibility that comes with innovation. I talked about the people who'd supported me, naming each one, explaining how they changed my life. Mrs. Chen, who'd taught me that family is built, not born. Professor Okonkwo, who'd shown me that mentorship is a form of love. Emma, who'd shared everything without asking for anything in return. I looked at my parents exactly once. My mother's face was wet with tears. My father sat completely still, his expression unreadable. The hardest lesson I've learned, I said, is that sometimes the people who are supposed to believe in you won't. Sometimes the people who are supposed to support you will walk away. And that's their loss. Because there are other people out there who will see your potential, who will invest in your dreams, who will choose you even when you have nothing to offer but hope and hard work. I held up the MacArthur Medal, the physical symbol of everything I'd achieved. This belongs to everyone who believed in me when I had no reason to believe in myself. Everyone who showed up. Everyone who stayed. Thank you for making me who I am today. The applause was deafening. I stepped off the stage and into Mrs. Chen's arms first. She held me tight and whispered, "Bamboo. I told you. Stronger than any oak." Professor Okonkwo hugged me next, then Emma, then David. My found family, the people who'd built me back up from nothing. I saw my parents trying to make their way through the crowd toward me. My father's hand was outstretched, his expression pleading. My mother was openly crying. I turned away. Walked out the side door with the people who actually loved me. The people who'd earned the right to celebrate this moment. I heard my father call my name one last time. I didn't turn around. That night, we had dinner at a tiny Vietnamese restaurant in Cambridge, me, Mrs. Chen, Emma, Professor Okonkwo and her family, David. We crammed into 2 tables pushed together, ordered too much food, laughed too loud. Mrs. Chen kept touching the medal, shaking her head in wonder. Professor Okonkwo told embarrassing stories about my early days in her lab. Emma took approximately 1,000 photos. Speech, someone called out, and everyone laughed and banged on the table. I stood up, suddenly shy. I don't know what to say that I didn't already say today. Say what you really felt, Mrs. Chen said. Not the speech. The truth. I looked around the table at these faces I loved, these people who'd chosen me. The truth is that 6 years ago, I thought my life was ending. I thought losing my parents meant I'd lost everything. But really, I'd lost 2 people who didn't know how to love me, and I found all of you instead. People who showed me what real family looks like. What real support feels like. My voice cracked. You saved me. All of you. You made me believe I was worth saving. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that gift. You already are, Professor Okonkwo said firmly. You already are. I got a text later that night from an unknown number. My mother. I'm so sorry. For everything. You were right about all of it. I was proud today. Prouder than I've ever been. And heartbroken that I gave up the right to tell you so. I understand if you never forgive us. I just needed you to know. I read it 3 times. Felt nothing but a distant, aching sadness for the relationship we could have had if they'd been different people. If I'd been the daughter they wanted instead of the daughter I was, I didn't respond. Deleted the message. Went back to celebrating with the people who actually deserved to be there. Sometimes I still think about that day in my father's Mercedes. The moment he looked at me and saw a bad investment. The moment I became worth less than $500. But mostly I think about Mrs. Chen's $15,000 given without expectation, Professor Okonkwo's mentorship, offered without condition, Emma's bedroom floor, shared without hesitation. All the small kindnesses that added up to a life, to a career, to a family that actually knew how to love. I think about the girl I was at 17, heartbroken and desperate, sleeping on a friend's floor and dreaming of proving everyone wrong. And I think about the woman I am now, at 28, with a MacArthur Fellowship and work that matters and people who show up. My parents gave me life. But Mrs. Chen, Professor Okonkwo, Emma, they gave me something more important. They gave me proof that I was worth believing in, that my dreams weren't expensive hobbies but legitimate ambitions, that I deserved to be supported, not in spite of who I was, but because of it. They taught me that real family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're broken. Who stays when you have nothing to offer. Who celebrates your success like it's their own because, in all the ways that matter, it is. I don't know if my parents ever understood what they lost when they locked that door. I don't think they can, because understanding that would require them to see me as something other than an investment, a reflection of themselves, a line item in their budget. And I've learned that some people simply aren't capable of that kind of love. The kind that costs them something. The kind that requires them to put someone else's dreams ahead of their own comfort. But I know what I gained. I gained everything. A family that chose me. A career that fulfills me. A life built on my own terms. And I did it all without the people who said I wasn't worth it. Turns out, I was worth more than they could ever afford to pay.